Back by popular demand, today we are talking about Ministry Moments, Part 2. What will we talk about today? Stay tuned and find out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About That, McNairy County's greatest podcast.
The greatest.
The greatest. Woo! There's some more in this county. They're going to be really upset that I'm saying that.
Well, the truth hurts. The truth is offensive to those that live in the dark.
If the tooth hurts, pull it.
If the shoe fits,
Wear it.
you might be Cinderella.
Okay. That's hilarious. All right. Welcome to the show. I'm Daniel Scott, and joining me today is Pastor Scott Whitley.
Howdy.
Welcome, sir. The man, the myth, the legend.
The myth is right.
Playing with my effects. I'll get them figured out one day. All right. So yes, again, today we are talking about Ministry Moments Part 2, back by popular demand. If I can talk right.
Were you the one that popularly demanded it?
No, not this time. I'll give him a shout out. Brother Brad Austin was the one.
All right.
Thank you, Brother Brad Austin. Woo. Yeah, he keeps talking about how this is like his favorite one, and he constantly listens to it. So it's like, you know what? We'll bring that back. A little sooner than I anticipated, but we'll bring it back.
I like it.
You know, it's just supposed to be, you know, every year after this, I'll start recycling everything, but
It's right.
but we're starting a little soon, so maybe that's a good sign or not a good sign. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. But all right, let's get started on some people's favorite segment, the jokes of the week. And it's an odd episode, so I got them today. I wonder why Marvel doesn't use Hulk to advertise their movies more. You know, because he's basically a giant banner.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I once entered a competition to see who could decorate their neck the best.
What?
I didn't win because it was a tie.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that one was pretty bad.
That was hilarious.
So I had a really quiet game of tennis the other day because there was no racket.
What? That's a good one.
Oh, now for my personal favorite. I'm sorry, and I apologize usually mean the same thing. Unless you're at a funeral.
Oh. Oh, wow.
That's all I got. You got to think about that, don't you?
That's great. That is great.
I laughed way too hard. Way too hard.
I'm going to be driving down the road tomorrow and think about that and laugh.
It's one of those. I hope it sticks with you.
Oh, it will.
Kind of like this podcast today.
It will. Stuck like glue.
Oh, my Lord. All right. That's as good as it gets, folks. Here we go. Ministry Moments Part 2. So sometimes ministry moments will not be easy. They will not be easy conversations. Sometimes they will be tough. And sometimes ministry moments are for corrective actions.
Yeah.
So I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how the prophet Nathan had to confront the King David. And the story has always been really great, has really stuck with me. One of the main reasons is because one of my favorite preachers, Brother J.H. Osborne, preached a message. Oh, Lord, what's the name of it now? I had it on the tip of my tongue before I said that.
I don't know. Give me some clues.
It's the Lamb.
A man and his lamb.
Yeah, a man and his lamb. I literally was about to say it, and I was like,
Yeah.
just gone from my brain. But A Man and His Lamb. So a message has always been one of my favorites. It's always really stuck with me, and it was really great because that's how Nathan, the prophet Nathan, comes to David and confronts him. And is talking about how a family had their lamb. The lamb was stolen from them for someone else to make sacrifice. Of course, David becomes outraged in this, and then David's like, "Who is the man?" And the prophet Nathan has to look at him and says, "You are the man." And of course, everything clicks with him, and he understands that, thinking back to his adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of her husband Uriah.
Oh, yeah.
Shortly after that. So he understands, and he gets convicted of that. And it's always been just such a great story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just great because it just relates home, and it helps us understand that our sins go beyond just who we are. Our sins go beyond just affecting us. Our sins can go beyond to affect multiple people, even multiple generations. Another good podcast episode on that, Kingdom Speak, they did an episode talking about how sins and the sin curse sometimes impacts other multiple generations.
Absolutely.
Really good episode, but never thought of it that way, but it's great. But talking about how the ministry moments, this is just another side of that I kind of wanted to bring out to us today, is that, sometimes the ministry moments are those random acts that happen, because we talked about I'm going to try to recap here a little bit, how the Good Samaritan, we talked about how he had the ministry moment, and there were others that walked by that should have been the ones to help the man.
Right.
But instead they pass on by. And of course, the Good Samaritan comes by. He has his ministry moment and says, "I'm not going to ignore this soul in need. I'm going to help him." So then, we have our ministry moments like that. And probably more often than not, we look at them like that and think, oh, this is a moment that I get to bless somebody.
Yeah,
I get to help somebody. I get to reach to somebody. I get to tell somebody about the gospel. And yeah, those ministry moments are great. But then there is the flip side of that. There's the ministry moments that are for corrective action, the ministry moments that, are a time when a brother's got to get to a brother and just have a real moment with them.
Yeah.
Or, vice versa, sister to a sister, whatever. But it's ministry moments that we need to make sure that if we have the ability, that we need to make sure we do everything in our power to act on those ministry moments, to reach souls through those ministry moments.
Absolutely. So how difficult do you think it was for Nathan to confront King David?
I mean, extremely.
I'm sorry, I'm putting you in the hot seat.
No, I love it. But it is extremely, because he even thought he could have me killed.
Sure.
He could have me killed just like he had Uriah killed.
Yeah, it would be less than what he's done already.
Yeah, like this would be no different. Like is this going to be another Saul? Yeah. Is his anger and his rage gonna carry away, and he doesn't care who he hurts in the process? Or am I going to be able to speak to David? And I'm sure that really, that's another great point there, is that sometimes ministry moments are for corrective actions, for, to help somebody, but it's about how you do it.
Yeah.
How we act on those ministry moments, just as Nathan did. He found a way to minister to David's heart.
Absolutely.
In a way that he knew and probably hoped, hey, I hope this brings out the conviction that it needs to help him.
So how does a minister, or how does let's just say, we can talk about it in ministry, but how does a friend prepare themselves for that conversation?
That's hard. You should be the one to answer that.
I'm sorry. This is great. I love sitting on this side of the table. I mean, I'm sitting on the same side of the table I've always sat on, but
he got up and we swapped seats, y'all.
I mean, you were just on a roll, so I figured we might as well just roll with it,
You love being on that side of the conversation, huh?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Get to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That is truly a hard thing. And I think one of the best ways we can do it is, don't act rationally about it. Now, there is going to be cases in your life where you have to instantly be ready to act and to speak and to do something. We're going to have those types of situations in our life. Sometimes we got to look at our kids and be like, smack their hand. Yeah. The stove eye is hot.
Oh, we had that experience this week.
You're going to burn yourself. Stop it.
Time after time, we said it. And then next thing we know, one of them had touched it. This was last night.
Oh, no.
One of them had touched it. Get a big old blister on his finger.
Oh, bless the baby. That's terrible.
It was the baby.
Oh, was it? Yeah. It's even worse. I'm sorry. But, the ultimate way that we can do is much like Nathan. He didn't go instantly to David and said, I've got this grand story to tell you. He had to seek the will of God. He had to seek the face of God and seek a counsel and relationship with God. And sometimes that's probably the absolute best way that we can prepare ourselves, because nobody likes confrontation. Most nobody likes confrontation. Do you like confrontation?
You were saying?
I plead the fifth.
Moving on.
But, nobody really likes to have hard conversations or, where that you've got to really enact correctment or rebuke on somebody. Because most of the time,
that's hard.
Most people want we want approval from other people.
Sure, absolutely.
We don't want to go against the grain, so to speak. We don't want to rub the cat the wrong way because those things sometimes are painful. And sometimes they do cause pain in our hearts, pains in our lives. Sometimes relationships are never the same.
So
after confrontation.
Oh, that's so true. So would you say that Nathan was more concerned about pleasing God, who put him in this role as the prophet, than he was about pleasing the king?
That's an excellent question.
He was more concerned about making sure that that he was doing the will of God than the ear tickling of the king,
right?
So to speak.
That's how I feel that the situation was.
It's interesting to me that when you look forward in David's life, he names one of his sons Nathan.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a man that has confronted him on
massive sin,
adultery, and murder. And looking forward, he remembers. I feel like he remembers, and he names one of his children Nathan. And I feel like that he would named him after Nathan,
out of respect, prophet. In my opinion.
I think he looked back and thought about that and said, "That's the moment that my life was saved."
Yeah,
I was headed in the wrong. I was on the track to be King Saul II.
Oh, that's good.
And the word of a prophet, the word of a man of God who was willing to speak. It's so funny that we jumped into this today, because last night at our staff meeting, we were talking about developing leaders, talking about developing servant leaders, not just
that's good.
We're not just leaders in the natural, but we are spiritual leaders. And you direct me and guide me and bring me back, rope me back in if necessary.
Oh no, have your freedom.
We were talking about developing servant leaders, and there's some people that you cannot use in spiritual leadership. There's some people that should not be in leadership, period. But even more detrimental is spiritual leadership, because we're dealing with souls. We're not just dealing with a budget and the bottom line of the company. We're not just dealing with how many profits,
exactly
what the profits are, but we're dealing with the souls of men and women. We're dealing with the souls of humanity. Therefore, we have to be extra cautious. But we really discussed one thing that kind of came out last night was whenever we are dealing with people and we are looking for leaders that are up and coming spiritual leaders who can fill this role, who can do this job in the local congregation. One thing we don't do is we don't pick people, or we don't choose people who have a nasty disposition,
right,
and who we know are going to destroy people.
Exactly.
And it came to me in that moment that the law in the Old Testament was that if you had an ox and that ox was known to push people with his horns, if he was known to be a bully, no pun intended, if he was known to be a bully and wanted to push people around, and you did not take care of him, if you did not corral him or keep him away from people, and then he got around people because you were careless or haphazard with your actions, and then he gored somebody to death, or he pushed them and trampled them to death, then not only was he to be put to death, but you were to be put to death also, because that thing that you knew was wrong caused the untimely death of somebody else because you did not keep it in control.
That's good.
Because you were not willing to keep the ox corralled. Now, the reason it doesn't say that for other animals, it does not say that for a bull, it does not say that for a cow, but the oxen has been trained. The oxen has had much time with the yoke on. It has been trained not to push. It's been trained to work. It's domesticated. It's got something that's been invested in it that a bull has not, because the bull has not yet been domesticated.
Right.
And the law specifically said that if you knew that he wanted to push people, you knew that this was possible, but you did not do anything to avoid it, then you are just as guilty as the ox is, and your life is required just as much as the ox's life is required. Man. And that's what happens whenever we, as spiritual leaders, we put people in positions that we know are going to destroy other people.
Yeah.
It's better. Now, there are places they can serve, and I was being funny last night, and I said, like, the flower bed, when nobody else is around, they can work in the flower bed by themselves. And I said, and there was two guys, they looked at me because they've worked in the flower beds, and weeding flower beds and trimming shrubs. And I was like, I don't mean just because I've asked you to do that, or just because you've done that doesn't mean that you.
This is why pastors ask me to do this.
No, that's not what I was saying though. But I think it goes hand in hand. Do we really love somebody if we won't have those hard conversations?
Exactly.
Because if Nathan understood, now Nathan was a prophet. I get it. Nathan understood that if he had not confronted the issue, there were so many things that were about to happen, because it's not just going to affect David. It's not just going to affect the palace.
Exactly.
As the home goes, so goes the nation.
Yes. The
kingdom is about to fall apart, because now we have immorality in the palace.
Wow.
Okay. So
that's insane.
Three doors down from the palace, somebody can live this life of adultery, and it will affect people, but it's not going to affect people like the man in the palace,
right,
having an affair and living a life of adultery.
Wow. Goodness.
David was only one conversation away from totally turning his back on God and living this vile, adulterous lifestyle. Because if he did it once, chances are he would have done it again, and then it would have just been a snowball effect. David would have continued that lifestyle, and it would have, nobody can touch me because I am king over the people. I'm Lord over all of God's creation. Nobody can tell me what's right or wrong. He would have been King Saul II, and he would have put away the prophets. No, I don't want to know where you are. I don't want to know what you're doing. Go do your thing and leave me alone. Don't speak to me. I can offer my own sacrifice.
Right. Come on.
I don't need a prophet in my life. I don't need a priest in my life. I don't need somebody to speak to God on my behalf. I don't need somebody giving me a word from the Lord. I don't need somebody looking at me and getting real with me. He was only one crucial conversation away.
Yes.
From destroying the entire kingdom.
Yes. He was one ministry moment away from exactly like you said.
But thank God for a Nathan that was willing to step into the chamber of the king and say, I've pronounced judgment on a lot of people, but this is probably the hardest judgment I've ever had to hand down.
Yeah.
because I've got to have this crucial conversation. I've got to have a ministry moment with the king.
That's good.
And my life is literally in his hands.
Yes.
Well, really it wasn't. His life was in God's hands, and he knew that. But he didn't know how it was going to turn out. God did, but Nathan did not.
He could have easily been killed.
Absolutely.
But I agree with what you said. He had enough faith in God to say, if he does kill me, he kills me. If not, then we're going to work on some stuff.
That's right. Either we're going to get through this, and we're going to put this thing back together. We're going to see the king restored.
Yes.
Now you already talked about how it affected more than just David. He lost a child because of it.
Yeah. Man.
It affected so much more than just him. Now people like to pretend like what I do does not affect anybody else, but that's what the foolish person says.
Yes.
The wise person says, I know that every decision I make affects me and other people.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect. I mean, think of Achan.
Oh,
one moment of bad judgment. I mean, I don't know of anything else that he did that was terrible, except for bringing the Babylonian garment back into his tent, bringing the gold, the silver. Sorry, I'm not looking at it right now, what all it was that he brought back in. But he brought all that back into his life, into his tent. And it didn't just affect him, it affected his entire family. That's why we have to be careful what we bring home.
Yes.
And Brother Stan Gleason dealt with that in his book, A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
I think one of the chapters was on that. It really talking about what we bring home with us.
Yeah.
So we really have to be careful and be willing
to have those ministry moments and those conversations and those corrective actions.
Yes.
But right back to your question, I believe we've got to get in the spirit of God. We've got to get in the spirit of humility.
So we had that conversation. I had that conversation with somebody. They said, if Jesus could kick over tables and braid a whip and drive people out, can we? And I said, absolutely. If we do it in the same spirit Jesus did.
Exactly.
Because now people like to misquote the Bible and say we should not be angry. The Bible actually tells us to be angry.
And sin not.
It says, be angry and sin not. So you can't just say this is how I am, this is who I am, this is how my family was. No, you have to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be responsible enough to take, what am I trying to say? Credit for your actions.
Yes.
I cannot blame this on anybody else. This is me doing this.
Well, it's like punishing a child. If you're going to punish your child, are you happy about it?
Yeah.
I mean, some people probably are, but or are you more sorrowful to punish that child? And when you say that old adage, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. And the child's like, not from my position. But yeah, how many times are we that child? And God's like, you don't even understand how bad this is going to hurt me.
Yeah.
To correct you.
Absolutely.
And to try to set you on the straight and narrow the way you should be.
And our empathy for people can be one of the greatest helps or hindrances.
Yes.
Because we can be so empathetic for somebody that we say, well, they're going through, they've got so much going on in their life. It would have been so easy for Nathan to say, you know what? He just had a bad moment. Yeah. David just had a bad moment. Look at how much pressure is on him. The kingdom is at war. The whole army is in the battle right now. David's got so much pressure on him. It was just a moment of weakness. Well, we still have to be confronted with the truth, even in moments of weakness, because it's wrong is still wrong. But we as human beings have a tendency to say, so somebody said, well, why did God choose for a man or a human being to become the high priest? Well, only human beings know how human beings feel.
Yeah, that's true.
And that priest was a man, was a human being, so he could sympathize or he could relate to the struggles that people go through.
Yes.
He could understand because he is a man too. He suffered like passion. And then God comes, robes himself in flesh, becomes our high priest. Well, why did he have to be a man? Well, first, it was in the law. The high priest was taken from among men. But he had to be a man so that he knew how we felt. He knew in his flesh how we feel. I mean, he's dying on the cross and he says, I thirst.
Yes.
So was his flesh really conquered in the garden? No, it was conquered the battle for the flesh was started in the garden.
Yes.
Not my will, but thine be done. But on the cross, he still had to wrestle with that fleshly desire. He said, I thirst.
Yeah.
That is a carnal, that's a fleshly desire. I'm thirsty. Bring me something to drink. He was still wrestling with it on the cross, but would not drink when they gave it to him.
Man, that's good.
Because he had conquered his flesh.
Well, we're almost never going to get over our flesh, our fleshly impulses, our fleshly wants, desires, needs.
You're never going to kill it forever.
Exactly.
You're going to have to do it over and over and over.
Exactly. That episode that I was talking about that I got this initial thought from was talking about the willpower, and he was talking about how when it comes down to it, if you rely on willpower, you're never going to make it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You've got to have your mind made up before you ever do something, before you ever act on something, and you've got to have guardrails put in place.
Yes.
So that even when willpower fails, you still have something to block and hinder and help you.
We've got to have the Holy Ghost.
He was talking about how his pastor, I think his pastor had told him, it's like, before you go get your license, if you've ever thought that you may ever cheat on your wife, he said, please do not go get your license. Even if it happens 20 years down the road, he said, do not. If there's ever even the question of chance or the willpower it could take over, do not. If you don't have something set up in place to block that and
this was
guard that.
Ministerial license.
Yeah. And it was a really good episode. And that's what he was really diving into with that David, if he would have been where he was supposed to have, but he relied on willpower. He caved to willpower and said, you know what? I ain't got to go to this time of war. I'm just going to hang back a little bit.
And sent everybody away.
Yeah, exactly. And it said that he, if I remember correctly what he said, that David got out of the bed to go on his walk. Well, he had the willpower to get out of bed to go have this walk and to, now, maybe he had noticed it happening before. Maybe he noticed it was a pattern. Maybe he knew, oh, they're going to be here at this exact moment. This is their normal bathing time. You know, his willpower failed him.
Yeah.
But if he had had something set up in place to guard and protect him, maybe if he would have had guards set up to say, no, King, I know that you want to go this way, but you should turn back.
Here's an idea. Barricade the door.
Yes.
Brick the wall up.
Or again, if he would have just been where he was supposed to all along. Maybe that's why he hung back and said, you know what, I'm not going to go to time of war right now.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because that's what he was saying. You know, we have a lot that we have to reach for there. He's like,
sure.
But he's like, there is a lot to reach for there.
Yeah.
He's like,
there's a lot left unsaid.
There's a whole lot left unsaid. And I think in order for us to have these hard conversations, we've got to have that with a spirit of humility. Because if we go, if Nathan had went in and with an attitude of anything other than humility, he probably would have been killed, possibly on the spot. Who knows? Because if he would have went in saying, well, I'm better than you because I know what you've done. I know you've sinned and I'm fixing to correct you for it. Well, that's no way to correct somebody. We've got to do it in a spirit of love and a spirit of humility. Proverbs chapter 27. Open rebuke is better than secret love. Verse 5 and verse 6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. I know you've talked about it a lot. Faithful are those wounds of a friend, because we've got to make sure that there are people that are not just there to make us feel good all the time. Yeah. The yes men. We can't just have yes men in our life.
Yeah.
We've got to have people who will lovingly wound us and help us get over those wounds.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to this? Because this has spiraled and went really well.
I just, you brought me that book back from men's conference several years ago. One of the few that I was not able to make it to since we've been going, and it was Leadership Pain.
Yeah, that's a good book.
And it was really talking about the hard things in spiritual leadership. One of the hardest things is when you have to confront those issues.
Right.
But the danger of not confronting them is greater than
100%.
Than the danger of, or even the pain of having to confront them.
100%. Because even if it goes south,
yeah,
even if it goes south and you don't have a friendship with that person anymore,
yeah,
the blood is not on your hands at that point.
I mean, you look at the sons of Eli.
Ooh.
Here is a young teenage boy, Samuel, living in Eli's house, living there in the temple with him, and Samuel, this young Samuel, has to pronounce judgment upon the house of Eli because he's allowing his sons to stand at the door and to have sexual relationships, this sexual immorality happening at the door of the temple with the women assembling, with the women that served the tabernacle. He knows and he has allowed. It's not that he did not know. It's that he has ceased to fulfill the office and is just holding on to a position.
Yes.
He has laid down his responsibilities and is holding on as tightly as he can to a title and to a position and to whatever it could afford him. He is holding on to that for whatever reason. At some point you've got to say, I'm not doing the job. I'm going to get out of the way and let somebody do it.
Right.
Well, he would not, so God raised up somebody else that would.
100%.
Samuel steps in on the scene, and when God starts dealing with him, the Bible says that not a word that Samuel spoke ever fell to the ground. God said, I'm going to use a child to pronounce judgment upon the house of Eli, who should have been the one to call the sons. It was gross nepotism.
Yes.
I will not call them out because they are my kids. They're grown. Now,
Wow.
we say when they get out of my house, they're not my responsibility.
Come on.
Well, God apparently feels a little bit differently because there's, even with, I would say naturally and with spiritual sons and daughters, there's never a time that we say
I'm done with them.
Yeah, they're beyond my reach.
Yeah.
I'm not able to speak into their life anymore. Now, they may be at the point now where you cannot command
And control.
and
Right.
control what they do and who they're going with or whatever, but they're going to have to make that decision, but you cannot be silent.
Yeah. There should never be a time that your love is not willing to reach into their life and speak into their life.
That's right. Love can never overrule truth.
Wow.
They have to go hand in hand. You cannot say that you love them, but you will not speak the truth to them.
Right.
You cannot say, I love the congregation that I pastor and not preach truth to them. You cannot say, I love them, but I'm not going to preach that fornication and sexual immorality is going to ruin their life.
100%.
If we really love the people that we are leading, then we will have those crucial conversations with them.
Yes.
And say, no, this is not me. And that's the thing. It took me a long time to learn this, but I feel like that Nathan the prophet could walk in and be relieved as he walked in because he knew these are not my words. It's not even my feelings necessarily, but this is the word of the Lord, and this is how God feels on the subject. And I've aligned my life up with God. Therefore, I feel the same way he does, and I'm going to be his voice in your life, and I'm going to speak the words that he has given me. So let me take the pressure off of spiritual leadership and say, it's not about you. Your motives have to be right. It can't be what you want to say. There's a lot of times I want to walk into the room with somebody and do just what I shouldn't do. I want to grab them by the lapels and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? What were you thinking?" But at the same time, I also know that as a spiritual leader, there should be some restraint in my life that says I'm going to filter this through the Holy Ghost and I'm going to let God lead me and guide me. And when the time is right, the words will come and the moment will come and we're going to deal with this thing. Saul was not removed from, as he was not removed from being king instantly.
Right.
There were things that had to happen, because from the very beginning, God said, don't touch my anointed, do my prophets no harm, because if the shepherd is killed or the shepherd is lost, then the sheep are scattered.
Yeah.
And God said, I'm concerned about the sheep. I don't want them to be scattered. And he said, so I'll remove Saul when I want to remove Saul, when it's time. Nevertheless, Samuel, you still have to go and anoint David. I know that you're still holding on to Saul, and there's a danger in holding on to what God has let go of. There's a danger in holding on to what God has rejected.
Right.
Because there's a David out there who we're gonna miss. He's waiting on. So I've had this ministry moment with Saul, but now if I don't go to David, I'm going to miss a ministry moment with David because I'm still holding on to Saul.
Right.
And David is never going to be anointed. He's never going to rise to meet the challenge of Goliath on the battlefield. The kingdom is still going to be in the chokehold of the Philistines. They're still going to be oppressed, and they're still going to be in bondage. They're still going to be paying taxes to the Philistine, and you can miss all of that by being empathetic towards somebody and letting love and truth get out of balance.
Yeah. Wow. That's good.
I mean, as human beings, we cannot say, I love somebody without stopping and thinking, what does love, what really is love? Because God is love, so I have to filter what love really is through what God is. Because as a human being, we have a tendency to get love take love way out of context. We really can't define it in human terms. We have to look at it in the context of God.
Yes. For true love, yes, absolutely. So Jesus was the ultimate example for ministry moments. How can we look for those ministry moments just as Jesus did?
I think it's exactly what you said. We have to look for them.
Yeah.
We have to have our eyes open. It's too easy to go through life distracted.
Oh, very.
By things that are never going to matter.
Extremely.
And then we miss out on what we should be doing because we're consumed by what's never going to matter. And we could name 1,000 things, but everybody knows every individual knows what they are distracted by.
Yes, you know what you are distracted by.
What distracts you probably doesn't distract me. What distracts me doesn't distract you. What distracts us doesn't distract somebody else. It's like certain keys. Somebody has a key to my house in the world because there's only so many keys. So somebody else probably does wrestle with the same thing that you and I wrestle with. So
that's fair. Well, there's only so many things too.
Right.
There's nothing new under the sun. You're not struggling with something alone. There's somebody else that has struggled with it, and somebody who is struggling,
and somebody that will.
And will, yes, exactly. There's nothing uncommon.
It's past, present, and future.
Yes. So we've got to make sure that we follow Jesus, to be the Christian example that to look for those ministry moments, to act on those, and not just look for those ministry moments. Because again, I want us to back up and look at that, with a humble spirit, with a humble attitude, to look and work and act on these ministry moments. Because we don't just need to jump out and say, I'm Superman, I'm here to save the day, and look at me. But we're here to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're here to help people. We're here to reach people. We're here to disciple people. We're here to love people.
Yeah, and knowing our purpose.
Yes,
is what gives us passion to do that. But if we don't know what our purpose is, then we will have passion for the wrong things.
That's good right there.
Jesus said, "My meat is to do the will of my Father that sent me." He said, "The thing that sustains me is knowing what God has put me here to do." That's what drives me. That's what governs my life. It's like having a purpose statement in a message. You're preparing a message, and I know what my purpose in this message is, and I'm going to gauge everything in the message by that purpose statement.
Man.
If it doesn't fit, I'm going to scrap it. Well, that's in our life. If we know what our purpose in life is, then we can scrap some of these things that are not adding or are not propelling us toward or to the purpose.
Yeah. Man, that's good.
Throw it out.
That's real good. That's really, really good. That deserves another hand clap. So if I can, you got anything else you want to leave on this one?
Yeah, I'm all out.
I've poured and I'm empty.
I'm done. My coffee cup's empty.
Okay. But I do want to end this today with a call to each and every single person that's listening to this and to hearing this, to look for those ministry moments. Don't miss those ministry moments by becoming, and look for those ministry moments by becoming those ministry moments. You know, look for those needs and be open so that God can use you in those needs.
Right.
Again, and be moldable, be flexible. Don't just say, I'm here to do this one thing for the kingdom of God, and this is all I'm ever going to do, and I'm going to be amazing at it. And if somebody comes along and says, I need help with this, well, I'm sorry, I only know how to tell you how to tie your bow tie. You know,
yeah.
Sorry, you're out of luck, bud. But, you know, be flexible, be willing to be those ministry moments. You know, yeah, maybe it's something outside of your calling. Maybe what somebody's needing help with is outside of your expertise. But you know what you can do? You can become that ministry moment. You can study on that, whatever that need is. You can learn what that need is, you know, whether it be, you know, some knowledge about the Bible. You know, you can do some extra study there and disciple somebody.
Yeah. One great debate is what did Paul mean when he said in 1 Corinthians, covet earnestly the best gift?
Oh, I love that.
Well, which one is the best gift?
The best gift is what is needed.
That's exactly right. Which one is needed for the moment?
I love that. But because exactly, and it could be 100 different things to 1 million different people.
Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape.
Man, that's good. So just remember, each and every single one of us, we are the light set on the hill. We are the salt of the earth. You know, God has called us and put us here because we are what the world needs.
That's exactly right.
The world doesn't need all the fancy things. The world doesn't need all these incredible things. You know, maybe you have the absolute most incredible voice or musical talent. You know, sure, those things are great, but the world just needs somebody to love them. The world just needs somebody to be that example, to reach out to them and tell them, you know what? I love you, and so does God.
They need Jesus.
They need Jesus.
And we got it.
Yes.
We got him.
We got what they need, so make sure you get it to them. So go out there, love people, and share the gospel with everybody. Any books, materials that you'd like to recommend today?
Read the Bible.
Yes, read the Bible. Let me go ahead and throw that. Read the Bible, everybody. That book that you said earlier by Brother Gleason.
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men, yes. So make sure you get that book if you don't already have it. If you need it, let me know and I'll let you borrow it.
It's only $10. Buy one for somebody else while you're buying you one.
Ooh, and then just give it to them. Man, that's good right there. I love it. All right. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being part of the kingdom of God. Thank you for being part of our podcast family. Leave us some comments. Leave us just leave us some comments. Share this with somebody. We love you. God bless you.